So when I was in high school, we were big on iced coffee.
Hi, how may I help you?
Hi, could I please have a small iced coffee with just oat milk?
Hey, how you doing?
Thank you so much. I had a little bit of an unorthodox school experience. I went to a really small school, and with that, we had extremely flexible schedules, which meant that basically any time my friends and I had free periods, we had no work to do, we would leave campus and go get coffee. However, I had a problem. Not a life-halting problem, more of a character deficiency issue, but I had a problem. It's like windy, but it's so beautiful outside. The character deficiency I had was that I was stingy. Pretty often people would offer to treat me to coffee, and as a caffeine addict myself, I would always take them up on that offer, but I would always have a hard time reciprocating. I would try to find a way to skirt around buying people coffee, always make an excuse, always conveniently position it so I didn't have to treat people. But here comes the end of the school year, and I ask the specific teacher to write me a reading list. That's what I have right here, I still have it. And on this list, and personally, he recommended to me a seemingly unrelated book option. But this particular book, I can say with confidence, has changed my life, literally, practically speaking. We'll get there. Fast forward to July, and I have taken some time off of work to work at a summer camp. And at the end of a dehydrating week of long hours and little sleep, like all good summer camps are, I finally came home. Sort of. I basically came home, dropped my bags, and went immediately to the gym. And then from the gym, I left to go clean a church. It was a little side gig that I had picked up for the weekends. But on the way there, I completely totaled my car. I fell asleep at the wheel and hit a young couple. Surprisingly, did not wake me up, but I did wake up right before I hit the bottom of a ditch. I didn't die, but my whole life came to a halt. I totaled my car and I had no way to get to my job, the following Monday. And what I left out is that I had just spent a large chunk of money to fix my broken windshield. I literally made the payments hours before I crashed and totaled my car. I was at a seeming hold for material possessions. The most confusing part is that I didn't really care. I was jarred at how little I cared. However, the main and really only difference between me just a few months ago being stingy and unable to treat someone to a $4 coffee, to me having everything that was valuable to me break all at once and have most of my money leave my account at the same time, was this one book, this seemingly unrelated book that my teacher recommended me. This book was The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. This book had such an impact on me that I used to say this as a joke. I'd walk into rooms and be like, "Have you read your daily Boethius?" That it became my senior quote. It's a story about Boethius, real guy, who was imprisoned under Rome. He came from a line of aristocrats, and he was very wealthy, he had a family, but he was imprisoned, and the only thing that he was guaranteed was that he was going to lose everything. They were going to kill him. He lost his family, and he was going to die. And the book is a conversation with personified Lady Philosophy. The first half of the book is Lady Philosophy consoling him and helping him detach himself from materialism. Not place his trust and hope and fortune, and not place the meaning of life and happiness in the wealth and the possessions that he owned. And that philosophy truly changed my life. I actually asked this same teacher who recommended the book what the point of philosophy was. I didn't want to be a cooped up in my room academic reading for my whole life, but kind of being like an antisocial, unaccomplished person. And I think that's a fair critique to have. I think that's why most people don't read philosophy, is because that's what they think of it as. But he said that the point of reading philosophy specifically was to live the best possible life that you can. And I take this principle and extrapolate it to all of reading. After this experience, it was clear to me that reading could be very powerful. But the question becomes, how do you repeat the process that I did? How do you read a book and it practically change your life, not just stay on your shelf and you never actually use the information that you get from it? And how do you remember what you read in the first place? The core principle I have used when it comes to reading that has not merely allowed me to read more books last year than I did the previous 5 years combined, but also has helped me retain what I read. I remember what I read, is that I read to solve a problem. I read in response to a deficit that I have. A good example is right now, other than the fact that it's a beautiful day and I'm filming this outside, is that I'm coming out and I brought this book, $100 Million Offers by my boy, Alex Hormozy, and that's because I am working on building an offer. I don't know how to do that well. The purpose of this book is to help you make offers so good that people feel stupid saying no. So I'm using this book to solve this problem. So this does two things. One, it makes sure that whatever you're reading, you're actually interested in. One of the reasons that I went from, for 5 years, reading one book a year, 3 books a year, to reading over 20 books last year, 24, 25, was that I actually enjoyed what I was reading because I'm interested in solving the problem in my life. A couple good examples of this book, Formation of the Bible. And so this is a history book. It's the story of how the canon of scripture came to be. A different teacher in high school, my senior year, he was a Pentecostal Christian and I'm an Orthodox catechumen. And we would debate all of the time because he was pretty outspoken and he was pretty provocative. And so we would be trading ideas back and forth. And of course, a topic that came up is, how do you know what books should comprise the canon of scripture? For his final assignment before he left the school, he wanted us to write a persuasive essay about any topic that we decided. Then he walks over to my desk, slides a sticky note across the table. I flip it over, unfold it, and it says, you should write one on the canon. And so I bought this book so that I could learn about the canon to write that essay. Unfortunately, he left before we actually got to write the essays, but it's a good example of what I mean. I have an issue, I have a problem, I have a question, and I'm reading a book to solve that. But also, this is how your memory works. This is how you remember what you read. I'll summarize the neuroscience for you. I've done a fair bit of research into it. Basically, the only reason your brain remembers something long-term, one of the only reasons, is if it thinks it's useful, if it's important to the brain, if there's a reason to retain it long-term. And that's why if you cram right before a test, I crammed before a bunch of chemistry tests. I have no idea what I learned in chemistry. I could not tell you almost anything I learned in chemistry. But when I've read to solve problems in my life, it checks that box of saying, this is important information and it's being applied. In high school, I was in those debates. I was having those debates. And so I needed that information or I was going to get cooked in the debate. And so reading to solve a problem is particularly powerful because it tells your brain that it's important. Another example out of the conceptual realm is this book. I haven't actually gone through it yet, but I wanted to learn about micronutrients and how to implement them into my diet, and that's what this book solves. So you can kind of see the philosophy I have around reading. I've been using this method of reading to solve problems in my life for a little over a year now, and if you want to get a reading list of the books that have practically changed my life, that have solved real problems in my life, you can get that reading list in the description. And this is what I want this channel to be, but I made this video in efforts to document the process. A decent part of my life is reading, is learning. I love to learn, and this is something that I've done. I have the evidence. I can promise you and say that with confidence that it works. But additionally, this is something that I'm continuing to do, continuing to invest in self-education. I think it's really important. Glory to Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God. Thank you for watching.